Hello friends, welcome you all to my channel. This video is part of the playlist Python Basics Programming Beginner's Daily Dose, where I come up with videos on fundamental concepts of Python so that beginner level Python developers will understand and get an idea of how things work in Python behind the scenes. In this video, I will discuss about a very handy module known as file input, using which you can iterate over the lines of multiple text files at one go, meaning using a very compact code. So this is about the module file input and the function input which is defined inside the module file input. So let's get started. Okay, so I have written a bit of code. So in the module file input, I've imported the module file input. There is a function input which takes the first argument of files. I can also specify like this, which takes a named parameter files, which is a list of file names which you want to process. It could be any sequence, like it could be a tuple of file names, just like I have declared a variable files underscore list I have taken as a tuple. It could also be a list. So files named parameter files will be a list, a sequence of file names. The mode, in which mode you want to read the text files, normal text files or binary mode. So I will not go into much details. I have just mentioned here R, which means I want to read all the files in a text mode. Open and read the files in text mode. So this is the very basic syntax. There are other named parameters like errors, which I guess will be a sequence of error handling code, which might all the errors that might happen while invoking this function, and when you will iterate over the lines of all the files. So when you invoke this function input, it returns an instance of the class file input, which is also defined in the module file input. So f here, small f, is an instance of the class file input. Now this file input supports iteration. It implements the protocol iterable protocol. Means if you can iterate over this file input instance of this file input, and what it will return is a list of, or a sequence of, all the lines from the text files in the order in which you have mentioned in the named parameter files. So in our case, I have mentioned the file names as 1.txt, 2.txt, 3.txt, and if you mention the file name as just minus this hyphen, it will read this minus string means the standard input. It will read input from the standard input, that is the keyboard or console. Okay, so I will not, and by default this named parameter files is none. All the default values are none. So you can also invoke the file input method like this. If you invoke this file input method like this, it will process all the text files that you have mentioned in the command line arguments, and from it will process means it will return a file instance class using which you can iterate over all the lines of the text files that you have mentioned in the command line as command line arguments. I will discuss that later on. Okay, so I have this file list where I mentioned some text file names, and I have the files 1.txt, 2.txt, 3.txt, but I do not have the file 4.txt. I have mentioned two times the empty string, not empty string, the hyphen string, for a purpose. First, let's remove that. Let's see what happens. If I run this code. Okay, so once I get a file input instance, I will use for in statement and iterate over the instance of file input, that is f, and I will get when I iterate over f, I will get the element that is coming out from the iteration are the lines from the text files in the order in which you have mentioned in the files named parameter. So you can quickly check what are the contents of the text files. 1.txt is 3 lines, 3.txt is this text, 2.txt is this text. So if I run this code, I will get, so first line of file1.txt, second line of file1.txt. You see there is a new line after the first line of after the first line of the file1.txt. This means it will not strip the new line character of each line from the files. When you are iterating over f and this line will also have the new line character of the lines of the text files. So this is fine. Now you see the program has not yet terminated. It is waiting for input from the standard stdin, because I mentioned as the last file name hyphen, meaning it is waiting, it is trying to read input from the standard in. So let's type some line from the standard second line. So it printed the first line, second line from stdin, and to end the file, to end input from the standard in, you press in Linux or Unix, you press Ctrl D. So now if I press Ctrl D, what happened? Okay, so I pressed Ctrl D. So the input from the standard in has is completed, and so all the lines. So the program ended because there was no file after the standard stdin, which is the hyphen string. Now let's say, for the time being remove the stdin file name. Let's say I have a file name which does not exist. What happens then? If I run the code, you will see there is an error, file not found error. So we see an exception, or we see an error, file not found error. And one thing to note, that this error will also terminate the program, meaning if you have once again 1.txt, this file, the last file, will not be processed because there will be an error in reading the file 4.txt, and while that error happens, the program will terminate. So if you run the code, so program terminated. Okay. So another thing to note, that if you specify stdin, meaning the hyphen string, more than once, it will only be processed the first time. The first time it encounters the stdin file name, it will process that and it will ignore any further stdin file names. So let's say, to see that, let's say I mention stdin in the as the second parameter, second file name, and then at the end also I mention the stdin file name. So it will process 1.txt, it will process then lines from stdin, it will process from 2.txt, lines from 2.txt, it will process lines from 3.txt, but it will ignore the last stdin. This will be ignored. Stdin file name will only be processed once. So let's see what happens if you run this code. Okay, so it printed all the lines from the first 1.txt and is waiting for input from the stdin. Let's quickly type some garbage lines, and then I press Ctrl D, and then it printed 2.txt, 3.txt. Oh, it is indeed waiting for again from the stdin. Okay, let's see. It is indeed processing the stdin again. Okay, but I read in the Python documentation that it will process only once. I will check that. Sorry for the misinformation. Anyway, so this is how you can process the lines, iterate over the lines of multiple files in order sequentially in a very short code. You see, this is a very short code. You first invoke the input function with giving the list of file names you want to process, and you can also mention here errors, which I will make a future video on errors, and then you just iterate over the f, that is the instance of the file instance which is being returned by the fileinput.input function. You iterate over f and you get the lines, each line, and you do something with the line. Okay, fine. So this is all I wanted to discuss about this file input module. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's see how we can process all the lines of the file names given as the command line arguments. So I comment this and I uncomment this. So this one, if you invoke just file input dot input without any arguments, then it will read. We get an instance of file input which will iterate over all the lines from the text files which are given as the command line arguments. So let's see, if we run the program, without any command line arguments, then definitely nothing will happen. Okay. So it is waiting for, okay, if you do not give any command line arguments, meaning it is waiting for lines to be entered in the stdin. So if I type some line, you type some line from stdin and then you press Ctrl D, meaning the end of file, it will, okay. Now see, what if I pass some files, text files, as the command line arguments? What happens? You see, all the command line files were processed. So when you just invoke input function, the f will iterate over all the lines of the files passed as command line arguments, if there is any files. If no file was passed as command line arguments, it will wait for lines to read from the stdin. Okay, that is all for this video. In some future video, I will try to explain how we can use this error named parameter and handle any kind of error that happens while invoking this input method or while iterating over the file input instance. If you are not subscribed yet, I will highly request all of you to subscribe to my channel, support my channel, and if this video was beneficial, then please like it, share it with your friends, and also please do not forget to press the bell icon so that you will be notified by my future videos as I keep on uploading these kind of videos on regular basis. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, take care and bye.